Here's a little background. Bitcoin rose out of the cypherpunk movement, and Bitcoin Cash rose out of Bitmain, a private company in China. Bitcoin Cash is the result of a hard fork from Bitcoin that took place in August of 2017. So Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash more or less have the same transaction history from August 2017 and before. Bitcoin Cash proponents have used this fact to argue that Bitcoin Cash is different from or better than other altcoins. This simply isn't true. Having the same ledger merely means that there was an involuntary airdrop to Bitcoin holders, nothing more. Bitcoin is decentralized, hard, Austrian money. Bitcoin Cash, on the other hand, is centralized fiat money. What is fiat? Fiat money is a currency that is created without much effort through an authoritative command, and where a central party can intervene in the market and even change the currency itself. If this sounds a lot like Bitcoin Cash, it's because it is. Let's break it down and really have a look at it. Bitcoin is decentralized hard money, governed by stable and immutable mathematical rules instead of a central authority. Decentralization has two important implications. First, decentralization makes Bitcoin very costly to censor. Bitcoin is censorship resistant, meaning that anyone trying to intervene between two transacting parties has to pay a lot of money in order to do so. For example, if Alice wants to make a Bitcoin transaction to Bob, the only way to intervene is to have a majority of the hashing power, which is extremely costly and unlikely. Second, decentralization means that Bitcoin is without a single point of failure. There is no single choke point. There's nothing you could point to and say, if I attack that thing, it would bring down Bitcoin. You can't shut Bitcoin down because there's nothing to shut down, because Bitcoin is decentralized. Bitcoin Cash, on the other hand, is centralized and is thus not really censorship resistant and has multiple single points of failure. And this is crucial. Listen, Bitcoin Cash is politically centralized, meaning that there's an elite group in the background that determines the roadmap for Bitcoin Cash. This elite group is a single point of failure. They determine what updates and changes will be implemented. And this is not through a democratic process, but rather through an authoritarian hard fork. In other words, upgrades are decided by a central authority and forced upon the users. Another interesting point regarding centralization is this, and this will be interesting for those of you who are interested in following the dollar price of the coins. Bitcoin Cash rose out of Bitmain, and Bitmain has more or less been acting as the central bank of Bitcoin Cash. Bitmain has tried to maintain a peg to Bitcoin Cash and has failed. Bitmain failed to keep the peg at 0.15 Bitcoin per Bitcoin Cash, 0.1 Bitcoin per Bitcoin Cash, and recently capitulated the 0.075 Bitcoin per Bitcoin Cash level. Basically, they're acting like a central bank selling its reserves to prop up the price of Bitcoin Cash with respect to Bitcoin. What's worse, much like a central bank, they're running out of reserves. And when they do, Bitcoin Cash will finally float on the market instead of having an artificially inflated price like it does now. And here's something really interesting. Here are the economic philosophies of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash side by side. Bitcoin follows the Austrian economic school of thought. And here's what I mean by that. In Bitcoin, there's no central authority intervening in the marketplace. Instead, the market figures out solutions to any perceived problem. There is no central authority telling everyone we know what's best for you. Instead, each person gets to choose what's best for him or her based on rules that are stable and immutable. For example, is the Bitcoin wallet you're using not offering you enough privacy? Not a problem. You choose which wallet you want to use. If there are no wallets that suit your needs, you can make your own. Bitcoin Cash, on the other hand, has an economic philosophy that is Keynesian, meaning that central authorities can intervene to spur innovation or solve problems. For example, Bitcoin Cash's central authorities have decided that the primary use case of Bitcoin Cash is as a method of payment, and they have subsidized the method of payment use case through large blocks. In other words, the upgrade to large blocks was forced and not decided by users in a free market. Bitcoin Cash is not a network where users are sovereign. Like all Keynesian currencies, Bitcoin Cash is paternalistic in nature. Listen, this is really important. This is especially bad if those in charge lack basic knowledge on either economics or distributed network systems. And those in charge of Bitcoin Cash lack both. And there's plenty of evidence for that. They want to scale on-chain rather than on a second layer, so they increase the block size from 1 megabyte to 8 megabytes to 32 megabytes to fit more transactions in each block. But achieving scale at the base layer, the blockchain, goes against the fundamental principles of how you scale a distributed network system. It's perfectly fine if Bitcoin Cash attempts this, but the trade-off is decentralization, which is why Bitcoin won't increase the block size, because decentralized scarcity is the most important value proposition. Bitcoin remains the only secure and decentralized blockchain. All other blockchains, including Bitcoin Cash, are centralized and not secure. And here's how they show poor understanding of basic economic principles. Bitcoin Cash wants to be a method of payment before being a store of value. This reflects very poorly on their understanding of how money works. Every type of money that has ever existed goes through certain phases. This is basic economics. Money begins as a collectible, then becomes a store of value, and eventually evolves into a method of payment. Before it can be a method of payment, it must be a store of value. Otherwise, people are not going to want to accept it and hold it. Typically, when there's a new expression of money, be it rhinestones, gold, or Bitcoin, it gains value as more and more people adopt it. In the adoption phase, it makes no sense to use it as a payment because it keeps increasing in value. It's not until it has become a good and somewhat stable store of value that it makes sense to spend it. Bitcoin Cash tries to jump to the method of payment phase directly. And that makes no sense. To adopt a currency that isn't a good store of value. This is why Bitcoin Cash has failed to see adoption by merchants despite the aggressive marketing. Here's the bottom line. Bitcoin users are sovereign over their own money. That is a huge deal. Bitcoin is the opt-in money for people who want to own their own money. And Bitcoin is unique in this regard. Listen, every altcoin has a single point of failure. That includes Bitcoin Cash. There's a team in the background and the team is in control and could be co-opted by another entity and then could change the rules of that altcoin at will. In other words, altcoin users, unlike Bitcoin users, aren't sovereign over their coins. Bitcoin is hard, decentralized Austrian money, meaning that you get to decide what to do with your own money, not the government or anyone else. Bitcoin Cash is centralized fiat money, and their main appeal is that they'll have a centralized leadership that is better than the fiat central bankers that you already know. While Bitcoin grants you self-sovereignty over your money, Bitcoin Cash promises a benevolent ruler. See, there have been 74 different hard forks of Bitcoin at this moment, including Bitcoin Gold, which has a different proof of work, governance, and a roadmap. Bitcoin Interest, which has proof of stake. Bitcoin Private, which has privacy and fungibility. Lightning Bitcoin, which allow for ultra-fast transaction settlement. Bitcoin Clean, which is supposedly environmentally friendly. All of them have interesting features, but like Bitcoin Cash, they require us to give up our self-sovereignty in exchange. Instead of verifying like we do in Bitcoin, we verify, we don't trust. The overlords of these forks want us to trust them. And this is the main value proposition behind every hard fork in altcoin. It's a bet on the people in control. This is why so many of them, including Bitcoin Cash, spend so much money on marketing. They want us to trust them and not verify anything on our own. Bitcoin Cash is fiat money for one very simple reason. There's a central authority, and this central authority intervenes in the market, decides the roadmap, and takes away your self-sovereignty. There are lots of altcoins that do what Bitcoin Cash does. Bitcoin Cash offers nothing unique and has no reason to exist. And I'll leave you with this. And this is reflective of the philosophy of the people that you need to trust if you, despite everything, decide to own Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash intentionally tricks newcomers into thinking that Bitcoin Cash is Bitcoin. They use the Bitcoin name and tell people who don't really know any better that Bitcoin Cash is the real Bitcoin. This is not only shameful, it's fraud.